Listeners, first of all, Bessy is blind. She thinks that she just normal. Well, she said all this talk about self-awareness and she didn't even know who she was. Let me explain something to you, Bess. First of all, you were a beacon to everybody. So yeah, to your point, you're like, no, I'm not the leader. You're like, I'm not. The fact that you already were a person that, first of all, you left Texas.
Yeah.
Go into the nation's capital and how much of a change that was tells you how much of a boss you are. You're like, yo, I am where I am. I be where I be. And that's where they need me is in DC. But and then here's the other thing, Bessy, if none of that, if I didn't do a good job there of explaining that you blind and that you weren't a boss and that others could see that, I'm going to just say this. That was the most, I wrote it down here. That was the most positive outlook on losing that son that I've ever seen. I'm getting a little choked up just to talk about it. And it's not even me. This is your life. But Bessy, that was the most positive outlook. I just got to say it again. I've ever heard. That was amazing. Like that, I was down and you picked me up. I'm getting choked up because I'm just thinking of the happiness. It's the
Is there anything better than a trip getting ready?
Nope.
For a long journey where our podcast released a new appy, searching for a fade fiend, new fixation. Giving this a subscribe is the same sensation. Started with the day ones, they gave us fuel to support the season. Could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here for a reason. Notification bells, text some friends, all to let you know. Check your Bluetooth, connect, talking with Donato.
Welcome in, everyone. Episode 191. Bring out the best effort with our guest, Bessy Martinez. Bessy, how are you doing? It's still morning here. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Donato. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing good. Doing good besides all of the Texas weather madness happening.
Yeah, I had no internet yesterday. I actually had to cancel. I have never canceled on anyone before. Had to cancel yesterday. No internet at home, and that was a headache. And then, well, one of my guys that I was going to be with yesterday, he lives in Houston, and you know it's ugly out there.
Oh yes.
So, you got any family or friends out there that?
Yes, I do. I have one of my board members that lives out there and a couple of family and friends. And so I actually was fortunate enough. My internet did not go anywhere. I was completely oblivious to what was happening with the internet until somebody brought it up to me in a call that they were excusing themselves of the environment they were in. It's just they didn't have internet. And then at that point I was like, wait, what is going? I was so like under a rock.
So that's the podcast. That's what this episode's going to be. You're just going to brag to us, Bessy, about all your accomplishments in life. Well, that is I heard, Bessy, I heard it was all the way out to like San Antonio, and you and your little pocket. Wow. I bet none of us believe you that you were scared. The rest of us were. It was the stone edges. And Bessy, I have an old laptop that has a DVD player in it. And then I go upstairs. I go rummaging through some stuff. I found like the 3rd season of The Simpsons. I go throw the DVD in. That sucker won't play because it's a really old laptop, and I think it had attitude. Like, instantly, we're back in the Stone Ages.
Yeah, it clearly it opens your eyes to what we take for granted, because I literally was like, I am very grateful for, all I heard was Spectrum, this and that. And so it then made me think about, well, if we think about cell service and are the towers, they're not just located where you are, they're located everywhere. It's a connect a dot type of situation. So when one is out, you're in trouble.
Bessy, you seem like a reasonable person, pretty rational. So I want to ask you a question here, because I don't think I have this. When that happened, and my mind instantly goes to, we're being attacked. They took out the satellites, and then I go grab my guns. Is there something wrong with me?
No, I think you're just precautious.
Oh, that's very kind of you. You just, see, I set you up, and you just got some fans here. That was very nice of you. You're gracious. Everyone else was like, oh, he crazy. So, Bessy Martinez, where the heck are you from?
So I was born in El Salvador, Central America, in San Salvador, the capital of that little
Salvadoreños!
Salvadoreña. So if you love pupusa, so if you've ever even heard about that, that is my culture. So I'm an immigrant, probably the only one other than my parents in my family to migrate to the United States when I was really young. I grew up in South Texas, the 956 area, Rio Grande Valley, the RGV, whatever you want to call it, whatever it's known for. Had my entire childhood there, graduated, and then said there was more to life than the border town near Mexico. So I left to Washington, D.C.
Hey,
and
Chocolate City.
Very much a culture shock compared to what South Texas is all about. But I knew, like I said, that there was more to life and there was more to the world. And so I think that was one of the greatest experience I have ever had. The Northeast raised me in my young adult life, and had my family there. Got married. My husband is from Houston, so we always dreamt of coming back to Texas, but wanted to make sure that our careers were what brought us back. And his career actually is the one that brought us back to Texas. We moved to the Dallas-Fort Worth area and was there for about 8 years. And then the pandemic happened and everything shut down, and the travel industry, because he worked in the travel industry, took a hit. And so they relocated us again. And so we ended up moving to the Austin Metroplex area, and we've been here for about 4 years now.
Okay, I got a bunch of things we got to do on that. First of all, I'm from the DMV. So
okay.
Hey, I see you. You came over to my neck of the woods. We'll talk about me later. I got to start with this first part. So El Salvador, coming to Tejas, and then you moved to this place called Chocolate City.
I don't think I've
actually known as. You've never heard? Oh yeah, that's what it's. Yeah, it's affectionately known as Chocolate City. So, but then when you got there, that's the first time you've seen that high percentage of African Americans, though, right?
Anything that was not Mexican American, predominantly Mexican or Hispanic, it was in a way it was almost like really diving more into what my culture was all about, because there are not that many people from Central America that have laid their head, so to speak, in South Texas. A lot of them end up going into the other cities like San Antonio, Corpus Christi, Austin, so on and so forth, in Houston. But that was the first time I'd ever met people from Puerto Rico, from Chile, from, you name it, just about any Latin culture, Latin country, that it was just huge diversity.
Yeah. A little bit about the DMV that others don't know. Maybe you could back me up on this since you live there. The second highest percentage of people with advanced degrees, graduate degrees, is in that pocket, that DMV. It's a very intelligent triangle area, if you will. And most people don't know that, but you're not your head. You've come across
it's very populated with military as well. And a lot of, I guess you could call it like military resources. So a lot of companies like, I'm trying to think, what's this one? Oh, man, I forgot the names of it, but there's more like base systems, I think is one of them. Now, I recently went back a couple of weeks ago. My youngest son was doing international, he made it to internationals for robotics, aquatic robotics. And so they had
congratulations.
Thank you. We made it out there. So it was pretty interesting to be back there. I haven't been back there in like over 12 years. So being able to see how everything has it's still the same, but it's not the same. Meaning there's just like every other large city, it keeps growing and expanding. There's more corporate offices, headquarters there now too. But when I lived there, for sure, everybody, that's all you really heard about was everybody going and getting those degrees so that they could go and be part of these corporate companies. Yeah.
Hold on now. So El Salvador, South Texas, you go all the way to, and your words, a very diverse place just to fall in love and marry somebody from Texas. Come on.
I know, that's crazy, right? So we're just gonna call it destiny, because when I met my husband, I had already been living in the DMV area for 4 years when I met him, and he had just moved to the DMV area, and I had never met anybody from Texas. Like, there's something about people from Texas that get people from Texas. Yeah. And living there in the DMV, you're either military, you're there just for college. I mean, there's amazing universities, elite universities up there. Even, from the University of Virginia to Howard University. I mean, you name it, that Northeast has a lot going on, and everything's just a short drive, to either Jersey or New York. It's only, 4-hour drive. So that population, that just area is just, you find everybody but from Texas, apparently. I'm going to blame the weather, because the weather's not for the faint of heart. It's cold. I loved it there when we were there. The cold I could do without, but I stayed there for 12 years. So I handled it okay. But I think that's what connected me back to home, was meeting him. But yes, it was crazy. Everybody's like, you moved to the Northeast just to find somebody from Texas. I know. Here we are.
How about the fact that there's a beautiful thing that happens annually? Those listeners may not know anything about this, and I'm sure you came back to Texas and you told them about some things when everyone's like, hey, blue bonnet. I think you know where I'm going. Tell these people about them cherry blossoms. Go ahead,
oh my goodness gracious. Okay, so it's probably the most beautiful thing. Like, you blink and those things are done. Like, if you don't catch them right when they are, it is like the most, how do I describe it? It's like clouds with a little bit of sunset colors. I mean, that beautiful pink and orange and yellows, and it just takes you completely forget where you even are. And then the celebrations that go alongside with the culture and the history behind the cherry blossoms and the festivals that they host to be able to educate. I mean, DC takes it up a notch when it comes to culturally driven initiatives and history, for just about those types of things. But it's so beautiful. I mean, obviously we get the blue bonnets here. Great. Yeah. I mean, cool. But it's a whole different vibe. It's a whole different just scenery all around when it's cherry blossom season.
All right. So I used to live in Los Angeles, and I had a homie, and he was Salvadoreño, and I mean, he represented, and his family was just amazing. Now, I've never been there. And some of our listeners maybe have never known someone, maybe they eat some pupusas, but like they don't know the people. So I want to ask you two things. This is off the top of your head and this is unfair, but hey, I lied to her, people. I was like, oh, this is going to be so nice. No, we're going to hit her with the hard stuff. We're going to make her scratch her head. Hey, drop a couple Salvadoreños, except for those in our present company, that people may not even know. Anybody that you can think of that you want to share?
Oh, well, the obvious is always going to be the consulates, the embassies. I mean, you don't have to really go far. Right now, I think they just crowned, or they're getting ready. They just started the Miss Universe. So, I mean, those are going to be the obvious countries where you can definitely see, Miss El Salvador being represented. I'm trying to think actors wise off the top of my head. Honestly, I cannot think. Obviously, coffee hasn't kicked in.
No, I was trying to see if you had anybody lined up. What have you gone back? Have you done anything?
I went back when I was young. I went back when I was like about late elementary school, which, by the way, a lot of people don't know this. Like, if you ever, their education system is different versus like here in the US, it's based like you start school at a certain age, depending on your birth or whatever, your birth month. If not, then social status sometimes gets you in sooner. But in El Salvador, it's not like that. So when I went, I was getting ready to start 6th grade, but in El Salvador, I was in 3rd grade.
What?
I don't know if they do it based on skill sets or what exactly, because I was never one, I never asked why. I just said, okay, I've got no choice. Like, and not only that, but they also did go to school year round, which was something that wasn't, depending on where you live, those types of things are offered in the school systems, all year round school systems. And some of them it's just, for 9 months out of the year. But yes, no. And they also have two times that people go to school. You go either in the morning or you go in the afternoon. And the reason, and I did ask why that was, and it's because a lot of those, because it's primarily very low class income homes, a lot of these kids do go and work and they are the primary caregivers for their family. So they go to school during the day and then they go to work at night, or they work during the day and then they go to school at night. And there is no age group or age to when you can start. I mean, you do what you have to do to be able to take care of your family.
Yeah. So since you have lived throughout the U.S., you've met some people from different countries, and then, of course, you immigrated here. Where are you going to retire at? You think you might go back? You let those retirement finances last a little longer over in El Salvador? Like, where would you see
investing in our people is absolutely something I'm super passionate, not just here in the US, but also back in my country. So I have been in talks with other organizations and other people that work for bigger, larger companies. Like right now, Google has already placed a headquarters in El Salvador. Dell also has presence over there with their IT. So it's about taking the resources that I currently have here in the US and saying, okay, from somebody that left that country, I left during the war, because of the war, somebody that left and was able to make something of themselves. I want to be one of the many examples of what is possible. And sometimes you don't have to necessarily leave your country. I know that country has completely turned a flip of a 180 with the current president that is in house in El Salvador. He's now on his second term. The man is sharp. There's all the other things behind it. So take it for whatever you want with a grain of salt. That's just everywhere. But from my eyes and my perspective of how I can support my people, regardless who's sitting in house, is my only concern is, one, are my people safe? And am I safe to be able to go back home? Which I am, and we are. And so how do I because I primarily work with startup business owners, and I mean startup, I mean literally they have an idea and they want to take it to fruition. So how do we able to take that same mindset and that same eco-driven concept and give it to the people in Central America so they can dive and provide more for their own communities, for their own, and build their own resources, without taking away from the natural elements that is the country.
Oh, so that kind of, I was going to get to some other thing. Nope. I won't push it yet. Let's talk about, first of all, so how old were you exactly when you came to the United States of America?
I was about 2 years old. Okay. Yeah, I was about 2 years old. But the first 5 years of my life was all about fighting for immigrational rights. My parents were huge activists. We were the first to speak up about our country and what was happening in the country, and the war that drove us to have to leave unexpectedly with just the clothes on our backs. So the first 5 years of my life, we traveled a lot with my mom and my parents, speaking about the injustices that were happening because there were no immigrational rules and laws for us. Everything was basically a gray. Now there are, which is why I kind of stepped away from a lot of that limelight. But now I'm almost basically at a full circle moment with picking up where my parents left off.
You I don't know if you play sports, but you just threw me the alley-oop. You were going right where I was going, because I was going to ask you where I was going is similar in that vein. I'm still going to ask it and see if we're kind of in the same path here. I was curious, like growing up, were your parents always like, yeah, South Texas this, but back in El Salvador, like what was it like? Were they always like doing comparisons, or were they the people that were like, yo, okay, USA, we all USA right now. We'll talk about that later on.
Well, I think what it was for them, it was, one, we made it to this country, and we already had our challenges when we stepped onto this land. For them, it was all about the gratitude for the people that helped bring us here. And two, it was navigating a system that we had completely no idea, the language we had no idea. So for them, it was they would celebrate, all the patriotic things, but they always celebrated it their version and their way. But I think a lot of it too was what you don't know. And for them, in their eyes, because we left for fearing for our lives, for them, it was, let's live the most simplest life we can to not attract attention to ourselves, so that people don't, so there's a saying in Spanish, calladita te ves más bonita, which means if you stay silent, you're prettier, for doing so. But for us, it was more of a survival game than it was really. So for us, it was, we're better off staying quiet and silent, and just living our life day to day, and just, living the American dream, so to speak, for the sake of our own safety.
Oh, wow. I'm glad I did it.
It's pretty intense, but
yeah,
those are the moments that I realized how much community really is needed and necessary. Because for my mom and for us, our community were the people that were living the same lives that we were, coming to this country illegally, wanting to just get a piece of the pie of the American dream, wanting to raise their kids, let them, grow up and I guess in a way live that traditional, system of graduate, go to college, get a job, get married, have kids and stuff like that, and see that through, because that was way better than the lives that many of them had come from.
Wow. See, we did learn something there. I'm glad, because I was going to abandon. I was like, oh, okay. No, I'm curious on our parents and getting to that point. So South Texas, some of us have never lived in South Texas. What would you offer? What's it like being down the valley? I shoot basketball with a guy that's from down around that way twice a week. Just was with him yesterday. I know what he tells me, but that's, others don't have that. What would you say? What was the draw? Because all people know outside is Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, Austin's on the come up. They don't know nothing about the Valley.
And you know what? The Valley is actually expanding. I was just there in November last year. I hosted a travel series, and I went down there, and it was the first time I'd gone down there in quite a few years. I do have a relative there. My brother's still there. Oh. Or my brother relocated after he retired from the Marines, down there, and it's evolving. It's a little behind in times because it is so separated from other large cities. And I would say that my personal opinion is there may be a little bit of resentment because they are so far removed, so they've had to innovate themselves for themselves. But at the same time, I think that's something to be admirable and applaud for, because it's not waiting for somebody to come and save you, so to speak. It's really saying, look, we see the needs of our own people because we're so far removed from everyone else. Two, there are checkpoints between the Valley and the other cities. So there are many families that cannot leave because of their status, or sometimes it's monetary status, their economical status. So that's the difference between the Valley and basically the rest of Texas, is that they have created their own mindset on how to be able to innovate themselves and keep up with the demands of everyday life and everyday, society. There are now, is what I'm hearing, companies are starting to look at the Rio Grande Valley as places, because there is so much more land down there than there are in the rest of the state, as places to be able to invest. But again, it goes right back to the, are we continuously looking out for our people? That's great. People are moving in, but how is this going to not just help our economy, but also how is it going to help our communities?
Yeah. Wow. That's a good point. I want to come back to that. I want to have a little moment of jest though. South Texas. Let's play a little game, Bessy. You said behind the times. I got a lot of friends from South Texas. I just told you about the one I played basketball with. Bessy, would you say that right now in South Texas, if you had a jean skirt or a jean jacket, you would be pretty fashionable down and around there? What say you?
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
You all admit it.
They like their jeans. They like their blue jeans down there. It doesn't matter how hot it is.
Oh, no.
They like their jeans.
Yes, they do. And proud of it. One of my good friends, I was on a river cruise with her here not too long ago, and she was like, "Yep, jean skirt all day," and not ashamed to admit it. Wow. Okay, so thank you for that. I wanted to share that with others. Bessy was like, "You already know the answer, Donato." All right. I'm curious then. Do you think that open arms is what the Valley would have right now for this expansion? Because you know what happens. Now we start to get into conversations of rich people moving in and buying up and changing areas and communities. Gentrification is the word, but I hate to just go there. So I wanted to just make it the haves and have-nots. I just wanted to just say rich people. But I think that could be the case. What are your thoughts? Because that could change the whole vibe of the Valley. I had a really good friend here that worked over in Westlake, had a great up-and-coming career here. His dad, because they were watermelon farmers back down in the Valley, his dad died, and so his brother moved back, but then he moved back to help to take over the family business. He just gave it all up and ran, Bessy. He didn't even think about all the momentum he had here in Austin. He was like, my family needs me, I'm out. Mm-hmm. And he went back. And that is, I've known him, I've only lived here for about almost 4 years. That has told me all I've needed to know about everyone that's from that area. And then I have, like I told you, I have a lot of other friends. Do you think that there's open arms, or is there hesitancy? What can you say about the vibe?
I think that there are some, especially this generation that's coming up, that is open arms to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I think there's still the old mindset of, we've got this, we can figure this out on our own. We've done it this, like this way for so long. Why would we change anything different? And I think it just really takes just even a group of people, not even one person. One person can't make that much of a difference, but a group of people to say, look, both sides are right. However, if we're all planning for the future and for the future of our children or grandchildren or whatever, we do have to come to a middle ground, and seeing, what are we what are we willing to allow to come into our space, and two, what are we willing not to sacrifice, and really hone into that, and really not bend over backwards for the dollar, so to speak, because the dollar, obviously, we see that thing and we're just like, yep. And I think really in the long term, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. I mean, I'm sure at some point, the Austin area was the same way too. I'm sure at some point the DC area, the DC DMV area was the exact same way too, where it was small town living. People were, generations had migrated there and lived there and weren't planning on going anywhere, until somebody saw an opportunity, and somebody saw a dollar and saw an opportunity. So it wasn't a matter of it happening. It was a matter just of when it was going to happen. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen, regardless if it's South Texas or if it's another town. It really is going to be dependent on the people in those towns and in those communities as to how much they're willing to allow into their space. But then, I mean, laws are laws, regardless of what state you're in. It's going to be, fortunately, not, the land is ours, but it's not ours.
I always see it coming. I'm on the radio here in Austin, as you know, and I don't want to say I'm arguing, but I have conversations with those in Austin who just keep complaining about how it used to be, and gentrification, or what the changes are. And so I always say this, for instance, if everyone back in the Valley think about it, they got to talk. You got to talk to tus primos, right? Like, you've got to, all your family, we got to keep abuela's house. Like, we got to make sure that we're talking about what happens then.
Yes.
Let's get the will. Let's make sure let's have a will. Make sure the will is updated and it's tight, so that we know what happens happen, so we don't lose the family house
Yeah.
that we've all come to, that maybe at this point we only come to twice a year. You come back from Austin to go down there, and but those are the conversations that have to be had.
Yeah.
Or you look around, abuela's gone, and then the house starts to fall into disrepair, and things aren't being paid, taxes aren't being paid, and it's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but sometimes you don't have to go even too far. So like I live in a community, I live in suburbia, Austin. And when I first moved here, when we moved here during the pandemic, we couldn't afford Austin. There was just no way with what we were we're looking for. There was just no way. So that was already the tipping point. But it's not like it was just because of the pandemic. So we moved into a neighborhood. In our neighborhood, there was a farm. There was horses, stables, ducks. It was a farm. And you could tell that it was a family-owned farm. Yeah. And within about a year and a half, they started building more houses around us, and that farm dug their heels and kept their land and pushed. And I don't know to what extent happened, because next thing we know, the farm is no longer there. The animals have been relocated, and the house suddenly is no longer there. They've torn it down. So again, it goes back to it's a matter of when. Not so much as to, how the legacy, I think, ends up being more of an internal legacy within our families. Like I said, my brother moved back there to a piece of land that my mother used to own. And so I see it as he lives in suburbia too of Harlingen, a small town, but that town is no longer going to be a small town. It'll eventually become part of the city, extended, the HUD of the city of Harlingen. It's a matter of when they're going to take over, because it's like 5 acres of land that has been in our house, in our family for years. And that was what my mother's biggest dream was to be able to have a piece of the American pie, which is have the piece of the land. Yes. But there will come a point where we won't have access to it, because either it'll be on our terms or it won't be. Yeah. No, I say it. In my family, I'm trying to get a family reunion together. And we got pockets here. We got pockets there. We got pockets there. So I was like, oh, one family member, you're in charge of that pocket. And so you distribute information for that pocket. Bessy, do you know how hard it is when you start talking money, how family goes? Because I'm like, hey, you do know we got to be able to afford this. So you collect money there, and no one wants to do that. So when it comes to things like this, all these cousins don't want to work together just to get a reunion going, to put in to buy meat for a cookout. No one's going to start annually contributing towards paying these taxes on these 5 acres of land. And then when the brother gets over the brother's head, everyone realizes, oh, it's too late now. We've lost it. Oh, it's his fault. No, it's not his fault. We all should have been looking in on that land and thinking about what can we do, because if everything starts coming around, I'm sure they priced out that farm. I bet those prices just went through the roof because of not commercial properties. I'm sure there's some commercial around there, but they got priced out. And then they realized, okay, it's not what it used to. A lot of cars, a lot of honking, the fireworks, it's affecting my animals. It's not where, maybe I head further out west. Another 20 years, they'll make it to me. But for now, we'll be out west for another 20 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, that's the Rio Grande Valley. I mean, like I said, I left in 2000. I had gone like 2 times between then and now, and then recently in November. And I had to use my GPS to get around, because a lot of the spaces did not look like what I remembered. Wow. I went to my high school, which was a magnet high school. And when I was there, it did not have fencing on it. So I tried cruising through my high school, and now you can't get in. It's fenced off. Oh. And I was like, wait, I don't want my mind to go in the wrong direction, but what happened? And, some people just say, it's because it's so close to the highway and for protection to the students and everything that's being built. There's parts that I was like, where did this bank come from? And where did this thing? Because it was in the middle of nowhere. That I'm like, we're just going to say for the protection of the children, they built this system that, because that city in that town no longer is like a town. You don't even know what town you're in, because everything's starting to now blend in. and there's certain pockets where it's like, it looks like it's a normal, you're driving through Austin, and then other parts of it, you're like, oh, wait, we're still in the valley. So it's just, it's ever cycling ecosystem of just growth. I think, like they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I think the growth is positive or negative based on who you're asking the feedback from. I myself think that growth is never a bad thing, but I think as long as we keep utilizing that growth to serve, then we are to really just be part of the trend. There's still ways to be able to salvage.
So, Bessy, what is it that you do now? How do people know you? Where do you spend the majority of your time or your day to day? What is it that you do? Because I bet everyone's like, why does he have her?
I typically work from home. Although I'm really good at marketing, and so everybody's like, "Oh, I see you everywhere." I'm like, "No, I'm not everywhere. I'm at home." But I'm really good at marketing, and I'm really good at being seen. So where I currently am now is I started a foundation called the Latina Foundation, where it is basically the central focal point for Latina empowerment, support in entrepreneurship, and personal growth. And it really started 4 years ago when I started a platform called Austin Latinas Unidas, which was really centered around connecting women from Central Texas to women from Central Texas, coming from a town to a new town, not knowing anybody, being Hispanic, being first gen entrepreneur, but an immigrant. There's a lot of layers to me. I was really looking to connect with like-minded women. I didn't want to just be hanging out. I wanted to diversify myself in a sense that a lot of networking events that you go to, it's because you are a C-suite executive or you're just an entrepreneur. And I'm like, I just want to meet people, period. I just want to hang out with the girls. We have something in common, especially Latina women. When we come into a room together, there's just so much magic that happens. And naturally, you network. Naturally, you meet people, and you blossom into friendships, relationships, partnerships, whatever the case might be. And so that's where that all started. And I started to realize as I was growing this platform and ended up becoming an in-person community. And that's what a lot of us were seeking. A lot of us didn't realize the thing that we were missing the most, especially during the pandemic, was knowing that somebody understood us, somebody was seeing us, and somebody wanted to support us, because we were all going through the exact same thing, only our journeys were different. And so we ended up hosting in-person events, really with the intention of connecting other women with other women. And we started just listening to everybody and hearing their feedback. We were all about boots on the ground and ears to the floor on what our community needed. And so that kind of just spearheaded the idea of, well, let's just keep helping and seeing where we can continue to help and support our Latino community. I was building my network and making connections, and people were offering me support and resources. And I'm all about regurgitating it right back out and saying, look, if you can take anything of my experiences as a business owner, as an executive in corporate America, as somebody that's leading community, and here are the resources that people are handing me that maybe I necessarily don't, are not using for whatever reason in my life at this moment, please, please, please take it with you. Because if I can help one person ever not feel the way I did in any point of my life of solitude, then I've done my job. And so that's what I wanted to leave, was I wanted to leave a legacy of saying, hey, I can lead by example, and there's many other people that want to do so. We just needed to find a space where we could be authentically ourselves, where nobody's going to judge us for showing up to a meeting, a board meeting with our hoop earrings and our red lipstick. I have a shirt on that says "Soy chingona."
Oh, she got the hoops on too.
Exactly. Because there is no cookie cutter to what we look like. I am, I'm a nonprofit executive director. But at the same time, I'm also a mother. Like, I have a life there. I don't wear suits that often. Once in a while I wear the suits, but other than that, you'll find me in my holy blue jeans, heels, hoops, hair up, Like, I'm here to tell you and explain to you what we need help in. It doesn't matter how I'm dressed. And so that's what I want people to start being comfortable with, is being authentically who they are, from how they dress, to what they do and how they speak. Because really, the story, your journey is really what speaks volume. We're all just here, just trying to be a piece of, the sunshine that our world needs. And so that's where I'm at now. I took everything, all my life experiences from the minute I stepped into this country to a lot of the headaches that I've received, and, the being looked at as competition for just being in the same space or the same industry as the next person. And I really just am trying to survive, and just leading an example and being authentic and speaking my truth, encouraging other people to speak their truth too, and just being able to be of service.
I'm going to come back to another part. Bessy, it's easy for you to say who we are because you've branched out. You went to the nation's capital. You came back. You're a director. But some of us, man, we still trying to figure it out.
I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't know what I'm doing 90% of the time.
To get that, agreed. To get that confidence of who we are, because a lot of us feel really, and I'm asking the question like I'm everyone else, but I think you get that. But a lot of us, a lot of the Latinas then would be like, I know I feel the pressure. I feel the pressure. I got a code switch, or I got to fit in, and I got to leave all that behind me. Bessy, what, and I'm hoping they're listening to this. How do you get the confidence to be able to say, I need them to understand we don't all have to look alike, dress alike, be alike. The diversity is what they need, and they need me in my true, authentic self. Do you get what I'm saying, right? That's scary, especially if they're just now graduating and they're branching out, and you're kind of forced to assimilate.
Yes, you know what it is you get eventually sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was living up to the standards, to what I was supposed to do as the oldest child, as the one that was brought to this country, as my way of paying back to my family for the sacrifices they made. For many years, I became very complacent, without realizing that was it. I just thought that that's just how life was supposed to be, because I didn't know any different. I didn't know anything else. Nobody was telling me anything different. I was doing, the 9 to 5. I was okay, raising my kids. Like, everything seemed, cookie cutter, because that's what I had been showed. I had been showed that on TV. I had been showed that in the news. I had been told that growing up, that if it didn't bring money, if it didn't bring food to my table, then it was not worth my time or energy. And that I needed to look out for myself, every man for themselves. And then one day it caused my health. And it was stress. It caused so much stress on me that it literally was killing me from the inside out. And you were seeing that on the external, because I was starting to shut down. I was starting to give up. I was starting to lose hope. But it was because inside I was feeling it all. I was feeling the pressures of years and years of just trying to live up to somebody else's standards and somebody else's expectations. For the longest time, I would straighten my hair because I thought that was the only way that people were going to accept me for who I was, and going to see not just my gifts and my talents, but see that I really do have, potential. There were a couple of people that absolutely saw me for who I was and encouraged me, but it was one of those that would go in one ear and one out the other, because I didn't see that for myself. There's that saying that goes, you can't love somebody else until you love yourself. And I never understood what that was, because nobody taught me how to love myself. And then I got tired of feeling tired and said, wait, let's rewind. Let's sit down. I had a life-changing event happen to me. I had to have surgery. I had been diagnosed with endometriosis, and I actually go into this. I I have a podcast as well. And I shared my story about it on how my son saved my life. My son passed at 3 months. We had just announced that we were expecting, and my son suddenly he passed, and there was no explanation, no genetic reason, no medical reason. And so what I took it as, he looked at this world and said, nah, I'm okay. I'm good. Mama, I'm going to wait for you up there and I'm going to take care of you. But out here, this stuff's crazy. And I don't think I want to be here to see it. I'd rather be your sideline cheerleader. And so I talk about how that experience completely changed my life, because I had lived 5 years with endometriosis without knowing that it was something my mother also had, because she did not know that she had it when she was diagnosed with cancer. And so looking back and asking her all of these questions, she was like, well, I didn't know. I didn't ask. I just knew I had cancer. And I just said, I need to live for my children. Didn't think twice about it and said, take what you need to take, but I need to be here for my kids. And that was a lot of pressure on her to live up to an expectation as a single mother of what society was asking of her. And so that just rolled over to me, and how she raised me and how she felt the only way to protect me is by, with the information she was given. So here I found myself having this major surgery right after losing my son, and saying, I feel it in my heart of hearts that the following year is going to be probably one of the best years of my life. But in order for me to sustain that, I need to be okay. And it needs to start from the inside out, literally and figuratively. Yeah. So what does that look like for me? And I sat down and I worked on myself like it was my last day, because it literally felt like, had I not had the surgery, it would probably be my last day. By the time they diagnosed me and I had my surgery, I had stage 4 endometriosis, which right after that becomes ovarian cancer. And so in order to save my life, we had to have this surgery. And so I learned a lot from that. On one, life is short. We only get one. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the only person that matters is you, your own opinions of yourself, how you feel about yourself, what you want to do with your life for yourself. How you make other people feel has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. But I learned all of this by literally saying, scratch everything I've learned in the last 30-something years of life. We're going to unlearn and we're going to relearn. And what does that look like? We'll figure it out as we go. And so after I shared that, that's when people really looked at me and was like, you were very vulnerable. That was probably the most vulnerable conversation I have ever had with anybody, especially with my community. To them, they saw me as somebody that was very, a go-getter, always positive, always empowering, very confident. And I was like, no, you guys, I'm not confident. But I also realized that the way they see me is how they choose to see me, right? Yeah. I have horrible imposter syndrome for a long time. I just worked on me, and I sat down with myself and I, talked about self-awareness and what does that look like? There's internal awareness and there's external awareness. And once I realized that, then things started to really change. Then I started to not give 2 cents about everyone else and their opinions about me. And I was meant to do this thing, and I was going to have the right people guide me, because of my self-awareness was going to be what really brought everything to life. My dad used to tell me that when the student is ready, the teachers will show up. And it's really that. It's when you're ready to learn and you're letting go of all of your guards, the right teachers will start to show up in your life to teach you the ways that you could probably never do for yourself, which is to me why I'm so passionate about community, because we're not meant to do life alone at all. We're meant to do life with other people. People will come and go just like the seasons do. But it's scary. I mean, to this day, I don't consider myself to be very confident, because every day I feel like I'm learning something different and something new about myself or about the work that I do, that it's intimidating, because you're taught so many things. So unlearning all of that at a later age is frightening, versus maybe if I learned this in my 20s, I'd probably be a little bit different, but there's a reason for everything. I think the timing, it was all about the timing and when it needed to happen for me. And so I just encourage that to everybody, that no matter how old they are, that, if they feel like they don't have the courage or they have insecurities, that they really sit down with themselves and look at themselves and realize that it's okay to be imperfectly perfect.
Listeners, first of all, Bessy is blind. She thinks that she just normal. She said all this talk about self-awareness and she didn't even know who she was. Let me explain something to you, Bessy. First of all, you were a beacon to everybody. So yeah, to your point, you're like, no, I'm not the leader. You're like, I'm not. The fact that you already were a person that, first of all, you left Texas.
Yeah.
Go into the nation's capital and how much of a change that was tells you how much of a boss you are. You're like, yo, I am where I am, I be where I be, and that's where they need me, is in DC. But and then here's the other thing, Bessy, if none of that, if I didn't do a good job there of explaining that you blind and that you weren't a boss and that others could see that, I'm gonna just say this. That was the most, I wrote it down here, that was the most positive outlook on losing that son that I've ever seen. I'm getting a little choked up just to talk about it. And it's not even me. This is your life. But Bessy, that was the most positive outlook. I just got to say it again. I've ever heard. That was amazing. Like that, I was down and you picked me up. I'm getting choked up because I'm just thinking of the happiness. It's the happiness of it. Not because I'm sad. I mean, I was sad when you first started talking, and then you said he's cheerleading and come on. So, Bessy, are you aware now, or did I just explain it to you, girl? You a boss. We need you.
Well, when I was a kid, the people that were around me always would tell me, and I had my godfather used to always say, "You were a special kid. I don't know what it is, but you are a special kid." And to when you're a kid, you hear all those things. Oh my God, you're adorable. You got talent, whatever. And even then, I knew when he said you're something special, there was something behind it. But again, what you don't know, you don't know. That's the whole point of living life. Like, there's a lot of things that now make sense that I'm like, I only have one life. The pandemic shut us down for obvious, but a lot of people did not come out of that stage of our global existence. And the fact that many of us did, and we're still continuing to live our lives the way we did before the pandemic, shows that we were just never willing to give ourselves the opportunity to live the lives that we wanted to. Life is already hard. I walk out of the four walls in my room and it's already chaos. But it's how I decide to live that chaos is what makes the biggest impact and the biggest difference. I'm like, guys, I have days where I'm like, I don't want to roll out of bed. I don't even know if I think I told my board that in the span of a week, I had fired myself 6 times. And they were like, I don't understand what that means. And I said, that means that I had given up on myself. I didn't know if I was the right person to do the job. I knew I was the right person to do the job, but I didn't feel like I was equipped with what I need, because a lot of my old me, a lot of my old self was still clinging on to this new person that was trying to evolve. I said, I'm always going up that stairwell and it's always going to show up different. It's always going to be hard because you don't know what's on the other side. But I made a conscious decision a long time ago. It just happened to be that the experience that I had with my son was what literally opened up Pandora's box. But I made a decision a long time ago that the only way I was going to be able to be happy is I had to make myself happy first. I could not depend on the people around me. And what does that look like for me is only going to look like for me. And from there, I just started telling people that. I'm like, I don't know why you're freaking out about that thing. It was going to happen regardless if you did anything or not. That's just how life is. You can't control it. What can you control? Okay, the way you freak out, the way how you feel. I mean, the movie Inside Out just came out. The second one. Have you seen the first one?
I seen the first one.
All right, go see the second one. I went to go see the second one and people kept telling me, oh, you're going to cry. I'm like, okay. I literally went and sat in the movie and was like, what's the whole big deal of this thing? It did not resonate to me because I am so in tune with my emotions now and with how I am internally that I saw that and it broke my heart because there are children still living those anxieties. There's children still going through those emotions, and nobody's telling them that it's okay. It took a movie to say it's okay to feel all those things.
Yes.
It doesn't make you any much or any less of a human being. It actually makes you a human being.
Yes, it does.
And if I figured that out on my own, I just wanted to make sure that whoever I brought up alongside with me, and even including my current children, I have 2 boys, that they saw that you can really achieve whatever you want to. It's going to cost you sacrifice, dedication, work. But if you're passionate about it and you do it with love, there is no reason for things not to work in your favor.
No, I'm in agreement. God, I cannot believe we are at the end of this. I gotta ask you this last one, and I think it's fitting for the closing. How do others find out about you? I wrote down you'd be a muse to a newbie. Do you give classes? Are there events where Latinas could show up and start to, well, this? I mean, you're the big dog. You may not understand it, but I just want to understand how they get this. Now, hopefully they listen to my pod or your pod to hear you talk. But what does this look like? Like, how often are you able to put on an event or have classes? What's the accessibility, I'll say?
So part of the Latina Foundation programming is we have a team of 11 ambassadors, which is basically volunteers that go and do what I used to do when I first started, and they host monthly meetings throughout Central Texas. So at any given point, there's anything from a boat trip ride that I'm telling you, coffee meetup, pickleball games, workshops, going out dancing. And this is not me. This is them deciding what they feel their community needs in their prospective cities. We do tons of partnerships too with other organizations that align with us being able to provide accessibility and affordable resources to our community. I would say, because there's a lot of pillars and there's a lot of moving parts, the best way to learn about all of this stuff is to go to my website, bessymartinez.com. You'll see a little emblem that says the Everyday Jefa, because somebody actually coined me that because of all the things that I do. And so it'll take you to all of the things that I'm currently doing myself personally, either speaking engagements or workshops or anything, any of the programs that we have going on for the community. You can find it on the website. On social media, LinkedIn, the same thing, Bessy Martinez. On Facebook and Instagram, my handle is the Everyday Jefa. Pretty straightforward. It's more of me sharing the behind the scenes of an everyday person just out there making moves for their community and for themselves. You know, everything from what I'm learning about self-awareness, my podcast, to what life is raising 2 teenage boys. You know.
It's there naturally. How many times when I go back to edit this, maybe I should count how many times have I called you the boss? And but literally, you are the Jefa. I mean, it's there, and it shows. And I said the beacon, but you are that beacon. You are that light. And I hope that if the Latinas didn't know you from your podcast, from your paths, hopefully I've been able to draw some over so they can participate and grow. I mean, you are that sunshine. You've given them that fertilizer, and we wait to see it. We want them to blossom after this. So thank you for coming on. This has been great, Bessy. I knew it, but you can write something on paper and be like, yeah, this is going to be awesome until you find it. But this was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it and allowing me to tell my story. I mean, I think that's really, I kind of made it my mission this year. You know, a lot of people know what I do in the community, but nobody really knows the story behind what makes me run and tick and stuff like that. So being able to be on podcasts like yours, just and give me the opportunity to be able to share a light and just a little bit of a glimpse of my behind the scenes life and why I do what I do is just truly an honor. So thank you.
Well, we would love to have you back. I can already see that I need to have a Hispanic Latina panel. I would love to have. I haven't done that yet, and that'd be something I'd be interested in. So let me see if I can work some things out and put that together, because I could just, oh man, I think we would love it. So. We will. You ever heard The Last of Us? Let's just end it on a threat.
Okay, sounds good.
Oh man, she wasn't even intimidated. She's the boss. Thanks, Bessy.
Thank you.